Good morning. Here I am with another devotion, kind of dressed up, snazzy, no suit and tie. My daughter's getting baptized today, so I got that to go to, and I'm getting prepared for that. Sitting here avoiding the heat in the air conditioning command post. So last time we looked at the first chapter of Genesis. We saw that God created all things, and he is sovereign or has dominion, or he dominates over all things. We saw this in the first 5 chapters of Genesis, the creation story. So today we're going to look at day 6 of creation. On this day, God does something really special, and I'm going to read from Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 31. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it. I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 6th day. So remember this when you're out in traffic today, or the sweltering heat, or cold, wherever you are. God made it to originally be good. So it's going to get corrupted, and we're going to talk about that as we go on, but not today. Today we are going to talk about God creating mankind. So God creates mankind in chapter 2 of Genesis. We'll look at this in closer detail, but I want to look at this passage first. And I want to concentrate on a couple things. First, God creates mankind in his own image. So what does that mean? What's an image? Unfortunately, a lot of people treat this as God created man as miniature gods, able to do, at least in a small part, what God has done. Or for non-believers, man is God. They are their own God. They're obedient to no one but themselves. So the dictionary definition of image is the likeness of an object. So God created us in his own likeness. So think of some images of you. Take a picture, for example. This has your image on it, or you look in the mirror. That also has your image. But those are just images. They have no abilities to do anything. But when God creates humans, he gives these creatures an image and certain characteristics that he has. So one is to be fruitful, to increase in number. So we are to populate God's creation. So this is not just procreation. In the new covenant, us as Christians, we are to increase believers. So we are to increase the amount of people that are populating God's kingdom. That's one of our jobs. That's one of our characteristics. So after God gives us the ability to increase in numbers, he gives us the ability to provide for ourselves from the things on the earth. Food, he calls it. Everything is of use to us. Of course, this has been corrupted. He also tells us to rule over creation and subdue it. Now, this is where it gets sticky, because these terms are, in our modern day, are negative terms. They're strong words, and they've been taken out of context. Very much so. So in our society, dominating or dominion or ruling over or subduing something is considered a negative, even evil thing. But that's not God's original plan. God's original plan has been broken, it's been corrupted. So that's why these words are corrupted. So as we'll see later as we go on in Genesis, especially in chapter 3. So God made us so he can rule over us benevolently, just as he made us to rule over his creation benevolently. So when we subdue the earth, we use it as we were intended to, or that is the goal, the way God intended it, with the constraints of God or his will. We act in obedience to his will. We are not to take our own initiative. That is us trying to be God. Initiative is trying to be God, not us serving God. So before we look at what it's supposed to look like, I want to quickly talk about the word subdue. Subdue simply means to take control of. So when you discipline or instruct your children, if you have them, you are subduing them. It's not necessarily a negative thing. Remember, your kids are created in your own image, just like God created you in your own image. Think about how we use the earth. When we mow the grass, we subdue it. When we cut down a tree and make it into a chair, we subdue that tree. There's nothing wrong with this unless we act irresponsibly, or irresponsibly means acting on our own or outside the constraints of God's plan. Words like rule and subdue can be negative or positive. They aren't always negative. So what is our relation to get God supposed to look like? What does obedience to his plan look like? Well, so the Apostle Paul writes this in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21 through 33. Let me get the old Bible here. Wives, submit yourselves to your husband as you do to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, man will leave his father and mother and unite to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of us must also love his wife as he loves himself, and a wife must respect his husband. So what? I thought you were talking about creation, not marriage, right? So this passage is not about husbands and wives. Now, it's usually taught that way, and it does apply. Paul says it does. But it's mainly about the church. Christ in the church. Us. So the church, also referred to as the bride of Christ, is not the Christian religion. It's a body of believers. As Paul says, those who have had the holy cleansing, who are made blameless by God, from washing with the word. So those baptized by the spirits, those who received the cleansing of Christ's death on the cross. That's the church. That's the bride of Christ. So these people, us, we obey or submit to the husband who is Christ. Christ is the husband, we are the bride. This is the analogy. And Christ as the husband submits to God. We do so in obedience. It's not independence. It is submission. This is what following God, being a believer, is all about. Submitting your will, if there is will, submitting yourself to God. Submit, subdue, get the correlation. Allowing ourselves as believers to be subdued by a perfect and benevolent God. Our glory is servitude towards God. And that comes from God. So today, the takeaway is don't try to live your life independent. Yes, God, as you do to your children, is going to let you go and learn and make mistakes. But this isn't the goal. The goal, he wants you to run to him as a child or as an obedient wife. He wants you to submit to him. So you are the body, his bride. Let him subdue you. Live that today, not independently, but live in concert with Christ or God. Live in obedience. All right. Hope you have a good day. Over and out.